On September the 6th, 2002, to an audience of 3.7 million, Nickelodeon premiered the brand new Season 2 episode of its mega hit series, SpongeBob SquarePants, titled Graveyard Shift. Or at least, it was branded new to television. In reality, the episode was seen first to those who owned the Nautical Nonsense and Sponge Buddies DVD released several months prior. But regardless, however you first watched it, over the years, this spooky-themed segment would become one of the most beloved and well-regarded classics from the golden era of the show. Some even claim it as their favorite, as it spawned numerous memes and introduced many of us to this odd fellow by the name of Nosferatu. This is false, by the way. SpongeBob lied to us as children. His real name is Count Orlok. You know, Count Orlok, the unofficial knockoff of Count Dracula, considered one of the earliest on-screen depictions of a vampire. How early? Well, 103 years ago in a German silent expressionist film, Nosferatu Symphony of Horror, which was reimagined recently for the Robert Eggers remake. So technically, to be annoying, it's Count Orlok from Nosferatu. It's like how Frankenstein is the scientist who created the monster, not Frankenstein being the name of the monster. I mean, come on. No, the real reason he's referred to this way is because a writer on the episode found the name of the movie more memorable and amusing than Count Orlok. He believed it fit the tone and overall flow better when the characters pointed and, called him out.
Nosferatu!
Interestingly, Nosferatu was never planned to be a part of the episode. In fact, in the end, the one responsible for flickering the lights was a totally new character established earlier on, who was subsequently scrapped entirely during production cleanup. As we all know, Graveyard Shift's plot revolves around the Krusty Krab staying open 24 hours and how, after telling a creepy ghost tale about the previous fry cook, SpongeBob and Squidward begin noticing fictional details from that story entering into reality. While working the night shift, we also witness a montage of SpongeBob performing various tasks at night. What we didn't see is that in the original storyboard, along with those other tasks, he is seen delivering mail to a figure dubbed as Floorboard Harry, a sentient piece of the Krusty Krab floorboard possessing one hole for an eye and noodle-like arms and legs. Floorboard Harry was initially intended to be the one who, in a Scooby-Doo-like fashion, is revealed to be the one flickering the lights. Of course, this never happened in the final version, cut for time and due to conflicts with the pacing of other jokes. It also may have been just a bit too obvious of a reveal, leading the writers to replace it with a totally different punchline. The joke that they changed it to not only works because it's an unexpected non-secular, a pop culture reference far too obscure for kids to recognize, but also given that over the course of the episode, Sponge and Squid are afraid of all these superstitions and a fictional made-up slasher. However, they calmly shrug off a blood-hungry vampire from a horror film who just so happens to exist in this universe. That's what's so remarkable about the comedic writing in the first few seasons. It was so well paced and there was variety. Tons of absurd situations and subtle, bizarre moments mixed throughout. Live action integrations and cutaways occurred regularly. At its height, the show could be rather clever, and the writers would involve relatable themes and affairs geared towards a teen or adult-oriented crowd, such as dealing with self-esteem and building confidence, when who you are conflicts with others' wants and expectations, having writer's block and procrastinating on an essay, being stuck at a dead-end minimum wage job, living with a roommate who takes advantage of you, the routine stresses of parenthood, going through a midlife crisis, the monotony of living in suburbia, and we can't forget about the one that radicalized all of us as kids, where Squidward and SpongeBob united as workers and went on a wage strike to dismantle the Krusty Krab as an oppressive establishment run by greedy capitalist Mr. Krabs. But the point is, a pop culture joke is niche and likely more recognized by older viewers in the room, such as Nosferatu, was not uncommon or taboo early on. I mean, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy were essentially created to serve as elder pop culture parodies of Aquaman and Robin. And those two characters have appeared semi-often throughout the series and are still around, though increasingly rare considering both voice actors have now sadly passed. Nosferatu, on the other hand, was purely a quick non-secular gag at the end of a singular episode, and it stayed that way for the first 10 seasons. However, what if I told you that he not only returned once, but has become multi-dimensional across spin-offs, a casual resident of Bikini Bottom with many segments under his jagged teeth, a couple with him as the primary focus? What? To understand why this is suddenly the case, it's necessary to acknowledge how the show has evolved and what it's like currently. So SpongeBob has been running consecutively for 26 years, and some of the newer animators and writers were probably fans who grew up with those signature 3 seasons, if not, had younger siblings. Not to mention a significant portion of the fandom, from memes to the general online discourse. There is a clear favorability towards that era, with the overwhelming majority citing it as the golden years, the peak, featuring the most iconic lines and character moments. For those reasons, the show frequently resurrects popular bits and one-off characters such as Bubble Bass, Dennis, or Baby Prunes. And in the season 11 episode, The Night Patty, they reintroduced none other than Nosferatu, 17 years later. This time, the plot follows Pat and Sponge getting a late bite to eat at the Krusty Krab after being kicked out of Glove World. At first, SpongeBob is unaware that the Krusty Krab stays open that late. However, Patrick informs him that it does, as he's a semi-nightly regular. As we all know from Graveyard Shift, he loves his 3 a.m. Krabby Patties.
Oh boy, 3 a.m.
And so far, this concept does seem very similar, if not a clear homage to the setup of that episode. Where it differs is, for one, the HD fluid animation, duh, but also this version of the night shift has rock-bottom looking sea creatures as customers, a separate spookified menu, and an altered set of employees that includes Nosferatu. Yes, you heard me right, Nosferatu now works as the manager during the night shift. Typically, when the show does live-action interludes, they use stock footage, B-roll, or have an actor physically move on screen and then they add the animation later. But in this case, there was conflicts with a European company over usage rights, so the crew ultimately decided to hire an actor to dress up in full makeup and stand in front of a green screen so that they could capture enough reference images to rig and animate. I think for all the cynicism, the backlash being seen as simply a tired excuse to rehash a popular meme, a desperate attempt to spark interest in old fans to watch the show again. And while those statements are accurate, they were at least committed enough to go through all this trouble for what is otherwise a very brief appearance. Let's be honest, things could have been a whole lot worse. They could have used cheap CG animation. After this, it would be a little while till the next Nosferatu-themed episode. In the meantime, he was featured for a couple of seconds during a musical number in the season 13 segment A Place for Pets, and he auditioned to join Evil, aka Every Villain is Lemons, aka the Bikini Bottom League of Supervillains in Captain Pipsqueak. What is there to say? Evidently, in this installment, he was animated using Adobe Animate, so fun fact. All right, now time for the real next Nosferatu episode, Squidferatu. The season 13, slightly extended beyond the usual 11 minutes, Halloween special. We open on Squidward, annoyed as his mail has once again gotten mixed up with Nosferatu's. This is a frequent problem as Squid reveals to Sponge a giant pile of letters and packages, containing issues of Bleeder's Digest and Bat Fancy and a Blood of the Month Club subscription box. From here, the two travel to Nosferatu's castle, delivering years worth of mail, and for the remainder of the special, the color palette shifts to a desaturated sepia tone to resemble the look of an old film, like The Wizard of Oz in reverse. It's a nice touch. On that same note, I haven't pointed this out yet, but Nosferatu himself has this constant film grain filter over his asset, giving the illusion that he was plucked straight out of the movie and plastered into the world of SpongeBob. Once arriving at the castle, Nosferatu enters the room by recreating his iconic light flickering gag. It wouldn't be so bad if they didn't repeat the same joke to end the episode, only in this instance, the reveal is rewritten to be Eric from Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom
of the Opera.
And I feel like this is just further ruining what charm the original bit had into the ground. The one noteworthy development this segment brings is in the slavish servant to Nosferatu, Slappy. Now, Slappy has had minor background appearances, most noteworthy in the 20th anniversary birthday blowout event. However, this is the first episode to establish him. I'm assuming since Nosferatu is non-speaking, obviously Count Orlok is from a silent film, but giving him a henchman allows for a more natural flow of dialogue and exposition between the characters. Slappy is voiced by Tom Kenny, and he's sort of this universe's take on a cross between Igor and Renfield, or Knock. It's also evident that Slappy is a parody of the classic European Hollywood actor Peter Lorre.
I want to ask my questions now, and I want to have my answers now.
Peter Lorre has seen various caricatures and homages throughout animation history. For example, Ren from Ren and Stimpy.
I know what you want. You coveted my ice cream bar.
Moving forward in the main series and the Patrick Show spinoff, his character is almost always involved with Nosferatu, such as in the very next mini segment, Slappy Days. The plot of this one is rather light. It turns out Nosferatu has a cold, and so Slappy delivers this pun.
You got a stuffy Nosferatu.
What a knee slapper. I'm sorry. Listen, it's only gonna get better because after registering this, the two visit Dr. Calamari, a reference to the hypnotist from another famous German expressionist film, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which, okay, that's great, even though he's clearly a fish and not a cephalopod. For those familiar with the source material, we also get a quick cameo from Caesar, his mind-controlled, sleepwalking servant. Dr. Calamari declares that he will have Nosferatu cured in a couple of hours, so Slappy leaves, and a majority of the short proceeding is Slappy's afternoon outing. This includes visiting an arcade, going to the carnival, and dropping by a local pet shop. How has it not been 2 hours at that point? Regardless, after a peaceful picnic in the cemetery, he begins heading back, where then Nosferatu is treated with a lollipop, and we iris out as the two fly away before the moon eats them. Sure. Speaking of getting eaten alive, the concept for the next segment is easily the weirdest thus far. So buckle up for this. Sandy has created this ray gun invention that can bring anything to life. She does this with a Krabby Patty, and then SpongeBob befriends said Krabby Patty, who grows depressed as his only genuine desire is to be eaten by the perfect willing participant. Relatable? I'm not even exaggerating. The whole conflict here is that SpongeBob wants to protect the sandwich as the Krabby Patty grows more and more desperate, resorting to shoving itself into the mouths of babies and plankton. I don't know. Eventually, Sponge listens to the needs of this living Krabby Patty, which may be different from his own needs, but that's okay because everyone's purpose is unique. So they run auditions to determine the lucky one who gets to eat this sentient sandwich. One cameo is from Slappy, another is Nosferatu, neither is selected. Soon tension rises as it seems everyone in Bikini Bottom wants to swallow this walking, talking patty alive, and it resorts to a violent outbreak. And then Gary suddenly pops up and without any hesitation eats the whole thing in one bite. Rip. If it isn't clear already, Season 13 is the one that solidified Nosferatu beyond some resurrected meme for a single episode 17 years after his debut to an ordinary figure and location featured in the show's modern era, as if he's naturally always had this level of involvement. It's nearly as strange as trying to adjust to the constantly shifting, wacky expressions and bouncy, fluid, fast-paced movements of characters that the recent seasons heavily favor for comedic effect. It's almost unbelievable. Funbelievable aired on July 13th, 2023, and was Nosferatu's final appearance this season. Basically, there's this tourist/journalist fish from the Patrick spinoff named Rube, who hosts a televised series called Funbelievable with Rube. And the focus of his latest special is exploring Bikini Bottom and interviewing some of the locals, such as Nosferatu and Slappy. Their contribution is a long, drawn-out sequence showcasing this Rube Goldberg machine, and the joke is that the host's name is Rube Goldfish, and it's a Rube Goldberg machine, so you see, it's referencing the pun.
That was truly fun-believable.
Okay, besides being placed briefly in the background of Pat the Rock, thankfully this next one is more interesting and part of a special with some substance and lore. That being the Halloween TV movie commemorating the 25th anniversary of SpongeBob SquarePants. I'm building up way too much hype for this. Kreepaway Kamp, aka the Kamp Koral Reunion Special event thing. Kamp Koral, for those who have been living under a rock, like a certain sea star, or hey, maybe you blocked it out of recent memory, was the quote-unquote baby prequel spin-off following the shenanigans of younger CG SpongeBob and gang at summer camp, and set the internet fandom on fire over the ethics of Nickelodeon, as this was announced less than a year after the passing of the show's creator, Steven Hillenburg. I think we've put all that to rest, I hope. Personally, I have never watched Kamp Koral, however, I am aware that Nosferatu is in that series, and as I've been told, has a more extensive role and presence across episodes. Only he's referred to as Kidferatu because he's, well, a kid. Strangely, he's hundreds of years old at least, though he just so happens to have been the same age as the rest of the characters. Then again, Sandy is there, which doesn't add up either. So hey, it's non-canon, separate timeline, alternate universe. Or at least it was until this special came out and, threw that headcanon directly out the window. So who knows anymore. Kreepaway Kamp premiered on the 10th of October 2024 with a title card that has got to be a parody of the, albeit transphobic for the time yet reclaimed today, 1980s campy slasher film Sleepaway Camp. Fitting, as this episode has many odes and nods to not only classic slasher films such as Psycho or Friday the 13th, but also incorporates many of the familiar tropes or cliches found in that subgenre. You see, the plot consists of the main bunch having a reunion back at Kamp Koral, things go awry, and everyone is now stuck out at this rundown camp with a mysterious figure on the loose, taking out each character one by one until it's revealed to have been Nosferatu. Just kidding, it's Elwood, who wasn't a serial killer and instead was planning a surprise party. Like, it would have been neat, except I haven't seen Kamp Koral, his place of origin. Many characters who originate from there also appear in this special, so if you're a fan of Kamp Koral, you'll probably enjoy this. Again, since Kidferatu was a camper, Nosferatu attends this reunion. At the end, they perform a dance cover of the Kamp Koral theme song, where he drops some pretty sick bars, so what a fever dream. Luckily for us, this isn't the most recent appearance of our old pal Nosferatu. There's one more episode at the time of recording this, Biscuit Ballyhoo, which aired on Friday, December 13th, 2 weeks before the new Nosferatu movie. Listen, I was excited about this alone, until realizing he's only in it for like 20 seconds. SpongeBob is delivering some biscuits to folks around the Bikini Bottom area. One stop he makes is at Nosferatu's castle. Slappy answers as Nosferatu is busy watching some classic TV programming, informing Sponge that his master doesn't eat solid foods. An odd detail considering he was trying to eat that sentient Krabby Patty a couple episodes ago. Instead, he drinks SpongeBob's blood like he's a juice box, and all I'm thinking is how surprising it is that out of all the items, Nickelodeon never officially released SpongeBob juice boxes. Like, they could have done like a tropical pineapple. Anyway, As of now, Biscuit Ballyhoo marks the current state for what was once a last-minute write-in, a subtle nod, a one-off joke that managed to become popular enough within online spaces as a recognizable, nostalgic pop culture moment that they decided to take Nosferatu and inject more life and flesh into his immortal being, evolve him into a normal, recurring character with a proper location, storylines that have sometimes even revolved around him specifically, and now has an established servant. I will say the current vibe of the show feels so entirely separate from where it started that it often feels almost uncanny at times, coming off more as like fan-made, fan-servicey, like an unofficial product, like it's losing its identity more and more. It's a strange era, but it does have its fans keeping it alive, which at the very least is helping the cast, who are getting relatively up there in age, stay employed. So that's nice. Who knows what the future will bring for Nosferatu and his involvement in this series. They keep making movies like the Sandy Cheeks movie or Plankton the movie. Can't wait for Nosferatu the movie. Oh wait. Yeah, after a while, you're numb to everything. Begin to forget that he's not an original character created by the showrunners or anything. Like, his name isn't even Nosferatu. But hey, at least it has Robert Eggers' approval.
Thanks, SpongeBob.
I hope you ladies and jellyfish found this little history deep dive interesting or informative. If you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe, it's free. I won't upcharge, like a certain crab would. Hope to catch you in the next one, and Finn.